I stood there in front of the toilet replicate in my new domestic, wiping away tears of happiness that had streamed down my wrinkled cheeks. At 69 years old, after 45 years of marriage and years mourning my husband's demise, I had wireless carried out something just for myself. This small house with its garden full of opportunities and home windows overlooking the fields changed into mine. Absolutely mine. I had spent my lifestyle's financial 5000 that I had stored penny by penny, denying myself small pleasures for many years. However, it become worth it. For the first time in my lifestyles, I had a place nobody should take from me. A sanctuary in which I should plant my flowers, examine my books, and truly exist in peace. I touched the freshly painted cream-colored wall, inhaled the heady scent of new wooden, and felt something I hadn't skilled in years. Pure freedom. This morning, I had breakfast in my small kitchen while listening to the birds sing. I had watered the potted plants I bought on the town, and deliberate in which I would placed my favorite rocking chair. Everything became perfect. Everything became mine. The smartphone rang as I was organizing my few assets within the master suite closet. I noticed my daughter's call on the display and smiled, questioning she would possibly want to congratulate me on my new residence. Despite the fact that I knew she had been against this purchase from the start. "Mom, it's a waste of cash." She had advised me over and over. "You should live for your rental close to us. Close to us, not with me. Near so I'd be to be had once they needed me." "Howdy, my darling daughter," I replied, with that maternal joy that never fades, regardless of how in many instances you've been dissatisfied. "Mom, get ready. In an hour, I'll be there with 20 human beings from David's family," she stated without even a greeting in that authoritative voice she had evolved because she were given married. "Make meals for anybody and get our rooms ready. We are best staying for 2 weeks." The world stopped. I actually felt as though the floor moved beneath my toes. My heart began to pound, so I idea it would burst out of my chest. 20 humans. I simply arrived. I have nothing prepared. I do not even have food for them. "Mom, do not be dramatic. It's your circle of relatives now. You need to welcome them nicely. David says his cousin is coming together with her 4 small youngsters. His brother Noah together with his wife and dual children. And Aunts Carol and Bate are coming with their households too. It is holiday time, and they want a loose location to live. Your private home is ideal. However, I don't have space for such a lot of human beings. This is a small 2-bedroom residence. And except there aren't any buts. We're your own family. You've got a responsibility to assist us. Besides, why did you buy this type of big house if it is not for us to use? Do not be fish, mother. We're on our way, so hurry up and get the whole thing prepared. Oh, and make certain there are smooth towels for all and sundry. The youngsters will need to swim inside the lake, so additionally prepare some food for the trip back. See you." She hung up. Similar to that, I stood there retaining the trembling telephone, feeling all the happiness I had felt just minutes in the past vanish like smoke. 20 humans in my new residence without caution, without asking if I could, if I wanted to, if I had the means to house them, and worst of all, talking about my house as if it had been an unfastened family inn. I regarded around my small 2-bedroom, 1B residence. Where would 20 human beings sleep at the floor? In my dwelling room that slightly had a small couch. My refrigerator was practically empty. I barely had a few eggs, some milk, and some tomatoes I had bought on the town. How became I going to feed 20 human beings? With what cash became I going to buy meals for 2 weeks for so many humans? However, what harmed me maximum wasn't the not possible logistics of the state of affairs. What broke my heart was knowing that once again my opinion didn't count number. My daughter had decided for me. She had disposed of my house, my time, my money, as though I have been her employee and no longer her mother. As though this residence, which I had offered with the sweat of my brow and my existence, have been a loose motel for her husband's circle of relatives. I sat on the threshold of my new mattress, the one I had chosen so carefully, taking into account the quiet mornings I would spend there reading, and started to feel that familiar hollow sensation in my stomach. It became the same one I felt on every occasion, and her husband confirmed up at my old apartment. They would consume whatever became in my fridge, use my washing gadget, watch my television, and depart the whole thing grimy and messy as if it were the most herbal element in the global. I vividly remembered the day after my husband's funeral once I needed emotional support the maximum. Had shown up with empty packing containers and a fake smile. "Mother, you have got too many things. You want to cast off all this," she had instructed me while packing my past due husband's books without asking. "We are taking those. You do not want them. At your age you do not study as a lot." And I, in my grief and confusion, had permit her take half of my memories, such as the gold watch that had belonged to my father-in-law. Once I bought the condominium to shop for this residence, she had insisted I supply her the money to invest it better. "Mom, you don't recognize wireless. I understand a way to make that money grow," she had advised me with that condescending smile I hated so much. After I refused, she did not speak to me for an entire month. And now, on my day in my new residence, she changed into already claiming her proper to apply it as if it were hers. Tears started to circulation down my cheeks as I looked out the window at the garden I had dreamed of tending. In an hour, all this silence, this peace, this feeling of freedom would turn into chaos. I remained seated on my mattress for numerous minutes, trying to system what had simply befell. The silence of my new house, which moments ago had seemed so beautiful and tranquil, now felt heavy and perilous. In much less than an hour, this safe haven I had built with a lot feis could grow to be an area of chaos and needs. I slowly were given up, feeling the burden of my 69 years greater than ever. My legs trembled barely as I walked to the kitchen, wherein I opened the refrigerator with a mixture of desire and depression. The reality changed into even worse than I remembered. 3 eggs, half of a gallon of milk, 2 tomatoes, a chunk of cheese I had sold yesterday, and a bottle of water. That turned into it. In reality, the whole lot I had to feed 20 human beings. I opened the shelves with trembling palms. You can still have beans, every other of tuna, a 1-2 bag of rice, salt, pepper, and oil. I did not actually have plates. I had offered for 4 people, questioning it might be more than for my desires. I by no means imagined my daughter might flip my home right into a family refugee camp. I looked at the clock. 50 minutes. 50 mins to work a miracle. I grabbed my purse and vehicle keys, knowing I must visit Metropolis to shop for food. But when I checked my wallet, my coronary heart sank even in addition. After procuring the residence, fundamental fixtures, and shifting expenses, I had $300 left. Till next month. How turned into I going to shop for food for 20 human beings for 2 weeks with that? The power to town felt. Every minute that surpassed turned into a minute less to prepare something I should prepare. Within the small Metropolis grocery store, I ran through the aisles like a desperate woman, mentally calculating every dollar I spent. Rice, beans, pasta, tomato sauce, a few cheap greens, bread. Nothing fancy, not anything unique. Simply simple meals that would stretch for lots human beings. The wireless bill, $240, almost the whole lot I had left. When I returned domestic, I simplest had 20 mins. 20 mins to convert my small kitchen into a eating place capable of feeding a navy. I put water directly to boil for the rice and pasta. I opened cans like a lady possessed. I chopped veggies with tears streaming down my cheeks. They were not onion tears. They had been tears of rage, helplessness, and profound unhappiness for what become happening. As I cooked, I couldn't stop thinking about how I had reached this point. After my husband's death, I had attempted to be the precise mother, the understanding mom in regulation, the available grandmother. When wished a babysitter, there I used to be. Whilst she needed to borrow cash, there I used to be. Whilst she wanted to apply my car because hers was in the store, there I was. Always available, always willing, usually saying yes. I remembered the time David, my son in regulation, had proven up at my antique condominium with 3 buddies without caution, waiting for me to cook dinner and provide liquids for all of them weekend for a soccer sport. My mom's out of city and also you cook so nicely, he had informed me with that faux smile that aggravated me a lot. In that I, as always, had rushed to the grocery store, spent my cash and cooked for them as if I were their non-public chef. Or the time had requested me to attend to her sister in regulation's youngsters due to the fact she had a own family emergency. 3 small youngsters for an entire week without paying me a cent, without even asking if I should do it. Once I stated I had to cancel my medical doctor's appointments to take care of them, she had said, "Oh, mother, do not be dramatic. Besides, it's right with the intention to have something to do so that you do not experience so lonely." Lonely. That word echoed in my head as I stirred the tomato sauce. I felt lonelier surrounded by using my family than when I used to be truly on my own. Because authentic solitude is honest. It does not pretend to love you while it uses you. The sound of motors drawing close pulled me from my mind. I regarded out the window and saw 3 motors complete of people getting out as though they were arriving at an all-inclusive lodge. Youngsters screaming, adults giggling, suitcases being pulled from trunks. And there was directing the display as the wireless hostess of my residence. "Mom," she shouted from out of doors. "Come assist us with the luggage." I stood there in my kitchen retaining the wooden spoon I had been stirring the sauce with, and something interior me broke. No longer within the dramatic way you spot in, however in a silent and dewy manner, like whilst the thinnest thread protecting too heavy a weight snaps. I walked out of the kitchen and opened the front door. What I saw took my breath away. 20 people indeed, from infants to aged adults, all getting out of the cars as if they have been arriving at their vacation domestic. A few already had swimsuits on, others carried coolers full of beer, and all, honestly they all, looked at me with that expectant smile of someone who knows they will be dealt with like royalty. "Aunt Mary," shouted David's cousin, wearing a crying child. "What a lovely residence. The youngsters are going to be so here. I hope you made numerous food due to the fact we're hungry from the ride." Noah, David's brother, approached, patting me at the again as though we were antique. "Buddies. Mother in regulation, that is best for holiday. Is the meals equipped? The youngsters haven't had lunch." Of root, they hadn't had lunch because they knew Grandma Mary would be there to fix the whole lot. As always, just like the dependable employee who in no way says no. "Mom," said, drawing close with a smile that didn't attain her eyes. "I am hoping you organize the rooms. And her own family will want the main bedroom because the baby cries loads at night, and we will sleep inside the different one. The rest can settle within the living room. The master bedroom, my bedroom, the room wherein I had placed my things only a few hours in the past, where I had imagined waking up each morning looking at the garden through the window. Without asking me, without consulting me, they'd already decided I would sleep on the couch in my personal residence. I looked at a lot of these people invading my space, touching my matters, speaking approximately my residence as though it had been theirs, and for the first time in lots of years, I felt something exclusive from resignation. I felt a small, however real spark of something I had forgotten existed, indignation. But I nonetheless did not know what to do with it. Mother, the meals, yelled from the door, as though I had been a waitress who had taken too long to take the order. The children are hungry, and the adults want to have lunch, too, earlier than we settle in. I return to the kitchen like a zombie, feeling the eyes of 20 humans wireless on my lower back. On the range, the rice had caught a touch to the bottom of the pot. The pasta became almost overcooked, and the tomato sauce seemed thinner than I might have preferred. However, it became what I had. It turned into what I had controlled to make with the little money and time I had. I started serving on the few plates I had, understanding they would not be enough. Indeed, after serving 8 plates, I ran out of dishes. I needed to improvise with cups, bowls, or even use the lid of a pot as a plate for one of the smaller youngsters. The humiliation became complete. "Is this all?" Noah requested, searching at his plate with the small part of rice and sauce I had managed to serve him. "I notioned there would be meat or hen. You do not have something else. It's just that you arrived and that I didn't have time to." I started out to provide an explanation for, however, David interrupted me. "Mary, it is Kay. We recognize you failed to assume so many humans, however you could have made an attempt. We are family, aren't we? Besides, this residence is stunning. You absolutely have cash stored to buy better matters. Cash stored. In the event that they knew I had just spent almost the whole lot I had left on that meal they were criticizing. Maybe not. They might probably nonetheless be criticizing. David's family had that unique capability to make you sense responsible irrespective of the occasions. Grandma, one in every of Noah's twins, stated, a boy about 8 years antique. "Do you've got video games like at my other grandparents' residence?" "No, my love, there are not any video games right here," I replied with the sweetest voice I could, trying not to unleash my frustration on an harmless baby. "And cable television and C084D044B971I3D98 he persisted, asking. "Not yet, darling. I just moved in and have not installation those services yet." The child looked at me as if I had instructed him I lived in a cave. "So, what are we going to do for 2 weeks? This is boring." Even as converting her baby's diaper on my dining room table joined the communication. "Mary, we need you to go to city to buy diapers, formulation, and infant meals. I forgot to deliver for 2 weeks. We also want sunscreen, mosquito repellent, and a few different things." She surpassed me, a handwritten list on a napkin. "Right here's everything written down. You could pass this afternoon." I took the listing with trembling fingers. Diapers, formulation, sunscreen, repellent, sanitary napkins, headache medicine, aspirin, antacid, children's shampoo, antibacterial cleaning soap, laundry detergent. The list regarded finite. I mentally calculated at least $200 extra. The final $200 I had left. I stated, trying to stay calm. "I do not have much cash to be head proper now. I just sold the residence and oh, Mary," she interrupted, guffawing. "Don't be dramatic. They are just basic matters. It won't wreck you. Except it's to your own family. I am certain you have got something saved for emergencies." "Emergencies?" They have been my emergency, but no longer the sort I had planned for. One and all David's uncles approached with a beer in his hand. A lager he had taken from his personal cooler. Thankfully, because I did not even have drinks. "Mary, in which are we able to put our matters? We need area in the refrigerator for our beers and food." I opened my small refrigerator, which became already full with a few things I had offered that morning. "Well, you can circulate my matters." "An ideal," he stated, already starting to take my things out of the fridge to place his own in. "And where is the room in which Robert and I are going to sleep?" "You best have 2 rooms," and said that, "Oh, do not worry. We will sleep in the reciting room. Simply ensure you have got blankets and pillows." It receives bloodless at night time here in the U.S. Blankets and pillows for 20 humans. I had exactly 3 blankets and 4 pillows inside the complete house, my residence, which was turning into a charity hotel. In the meantime, the children had located my lawn and had been jogging most of the potted vegetation I had bought so lovingly that morning. I watched as considered one of them stomped on my small tomato plant life that I had planted simply hours earlier than, full of hope and excitement. "Youngsters, be careful," I shouted from the window. "Oh, leave them by myself." Noah shouted again. "They are youngsters. They want to run and play. It truly is why we came to the us of us so they can be unfastened." Unfastened in my lawn, destroying my plants with my cash, paying for their meals at the same time as I have become the motel worker for a majority of these people. Approach me as I washed dishes within the small kitchen sink. "Mom, I want to speak to you. David's family is very excited to be right here, but I suppose you could try a touch to make them experience welcome." I grew to become to examine her, my fingers dripping soapy water. Attempt. "Yes, mother." The food turned into simple, and the house feels a little cold. "As if you do not want us right here. Consider that is impossibility with a purpose to get to understand your son-in-law's family higher. You should be thankful they need to spend time with you." Grateful. That word resonated in my head like a slap. Grateful that 20 human beings invaded my residence without permission, spent my money, criticized my food, destroyed my garden, and dealt with me like their private employee. Except persevered. I am hoping you don't plan on charging them anything to live right here. That would be very stingy of you. Fee them. The idea hadn't even came about to me, but now that she noted it, why now not? If it were some other location, they would be paying at the least 100 in step with night according to room. 20 human beings 2 weeks. That could be hundreds of greenbacks. However, I said nothing. Not but. I simply nodded and continued washing dishes, feeling that small spark of indignation I had felt earlier then slowly begin to grow in my chest. That night time, whilst 20 humans slept with no in my house, I stayed wakeful on the small couch in the reciting room, taking note of the snores coming from everywhere, watching the ceiling, and questioning whilst exactly I had lost manipulate of my own lifestyles. The solution got here to me in the darkness. I had misplaced it step by step. Whenever I stated yes, once I desired to say no. Whenever I placed others' needs before my very own. Every time I let them deal with me as though my time, my money, and my space had no cost. However, for the first time in a long time, I also realized something else. It turned into still time to regain that control. I awakened at 5 wireless inside the morning with horrible backache from snoozing on the couch. The silence of the sunrise lasted exactly 30 seconds earlier than chaos started. This toddler started out crying, waking up all the different kids, who right away started out running through the residence, screaming and gambling as though it were an amusement park. I got up from the sofa, feeling every one of my 69 years in my joints, and headed to the kitchen to make espresso. I wished caffeine to continue to exist what became coming. However, after I arrived, I found Noah already there through my fridge as though it had been his very own. "Right morning, Mary," he said without searching up. "Where's the coffee? And we need milk for the children's cereal." "I do not have cereal," I responded, seeking to preserve an impartial tone. "What do you mean you don't have cereal? What are the children going to consume for breakfast then?" It was an honest query, and I didn't have a sincere answer. I did not have cereal. I did not have milk. I did not have enough of whatever to feed 20 people for 2 weeks. My small pantry turned into designed for one man or woman who ate sincerely and economically. Am I able to make scrambled eggs? I presented, knowing I had exactly 6 eggs left after the ones I had used the day before today. 6 eggs for 20 human beings. Noah asked, guffawing. We would better visit city to shop for real food. However, make it brief because the youngsters can be hungry quickly. Permits pass. As though it had been a joint choice, as though the cash belonged to each people, as though I hadn't just spent my last yesterday on a meal that they had criticized. Seemed within the kitchen with the infant in her fingers and a sour face. Mary, I need you to boil water for the bottle, and I additionally need you to clean those garments due to the fact the toddler dirty himself nighttime. She handed me a bag complete of grimy clothes that smelled horrible. Failed to convey clothes for the baby? I requested. Yes, but I didn't suppose he might get so grimy. Besides, you've got a showering machine right here. Is not it simpler to wash here than to hold a lot laundry? For her, more work for me, greater fee for water, strength, and detergent for me. The kids commenced to reach in the kitchen like a hungry 5 wireless kids among the ages of 4 and 12, all asking what became for breakfast. All looking forward to the mystical grandma to supply food out of skinny air. Grandma, I'm hungry, the youngest female stated with such an innocent face that it broke my heart. It wasn't her fault to be in this situation. My love. Let's see what we can do, I responded, opening empty shelves and seeking to work miracles. Robert App seemed yawning and scratching his belly. Mary, do you've got coffee and no longer that immediately stuff? I hope for something decent espresso. I had simply gotten up from my personal sofa after being kicked out of my personal mattress, and he became requesting connoisseur espresso. I simplest have instantaneous espresso, I instructed him. Nicely, I bet we're going to must visit town to buy real coffee too. And considering that we are going, we can buy the entirety we want for these days. We once more that word, as though we have been partners on this disaster. Came downstairs from my room where she had slept with ease in my mattress, searching flawlessly rested. Accurate morning, Mom. Is breakfast geared up? David is hungry and does not like to wait. I don't have meals for Mother, we already pointed out this the previous day. You need to get extra organized. We are 20 people. You cannot improvise. Why don't you make a proper buying listing and visit Metropolis? We are able to stay here taking care of the house. Taking care of my residents, whilst I spent my money buying food for them. David appeared in the back of with that fake smile I also knew. Mother in regulation, exact morning. I heard you're going to town. Can you bring cigarettes and beer? The ones we brought may not 2 weeks. We additionally want charcoal for a barbecue tomorrow. Cigarettes, beer, charcoal. The list of prices stored developing and my pockets stored shrinking. David, I do not smoke and I do not drink. I don't know what brands. Don't worry, any brand is. The essential component is that we have to have a great time. Having a very time with my cash in my house, whilst I worked as their non-public worker. Join the organization inside the kitchen. Mary, nighttime I talked to Robert, and we idea it'd be a great concept to have a massive barbecue for the complete circle of relatives. We can invite greater spouse and children who live close by. What do you reflect on organizing something for the weekend? More spouse and children. I requested, feeling my blood stress upward push. Yes, we're a massive, close-knit circle of relatives. It will likely be fun. We just want you to buy meat for about 30 human beings. Nothing out of this global. 30 humans. Meat for 30 people. I mentally calculated at least 500 extra bucks. Money I genuinely did not have. I don't suppose I can afford. Oh, Mary interrupted. Don't be stingy. It is a circle of relatives collecting. Except with what you're saving through now, not buying a resort for everybody, you may clearly have enough money, eh? Barbecue. Now not buying it in, as though being in my residence changed into free. As though my time, my area, my peace of mind were well worth nothing. The children, meanwhile, had observed my few containers of crackers and had been eating them without delay from the package deal, scattering crumbs throughout my freshly wiped clean kitchen. "Children don't eat that," I shouted. "What are those crackers for, Mother?" Requested in an aggravated tone. "They may be just crackers. The kids are hungry and you haven't prepared something for breakfast. At the least let them devour something. Something. My crackers. My meals. My remaining meals reserve in the house." Mother persevered. "I suppose you're being a touch. That is a beautiful opportunity for own family bonding. And you are just complaining approximately small such things as crackers and money. Aren't you fi to peer us glad?" Glad. They had been spending my money, dozing in my house, consuming my food, and treating me like their worker. Of direction they have been. I stood there in my kitchen, surrounded through 20 people who looked at me as though I had been the villain of the story for now not having meals to feed them at no cost for 2 weeks. And something inside me wireless clicked. It wasn't a dramatic explosion. It became more like when a puzzle piece that were out of vicinity for years suits. I may want to see the complete image with a readability that amazed me. Those humans didn't love me. They wished me. There has been a massive difference between those two things, and that I had spent years confusing them. "It's K," I informed them with a relax that surprised even myself. "I will go to town to shop for what you want." Each person smiled, that they had received another war towards the obliging grandma. But as I took my purse and automobile keys, I wasn't considering meals or purchasing lists. I was thinking about something completely special. I used to be thinking about the legal professionals I had visible in town the day prior to this, and of that perhaps it become time to have. For the first time in days, I left my residence with a real smile on my lips. The experience to city that morning turned into the most releasing I had had in years. For the primary time, given that my circle of relatives arrived, I used to be by myself with my mind, with no person annoying anything from me, no children screaming, no adults treating me like a housekeeper. The silence of the automobile felt like a balm to my wounded soul. However, I did not cross directly to the supermarket as they anticipated. Alternatively, I parked in front of a small cafe I had visible the day before and sat down to have a real cup of coffee whilst organizing my mind. I needed time to process what I had understood that morning. "Are you all right, ma'am?" The waitress requested me, a middle-elderly lady with a kind face. "You look a little stricken," I smiled lamentably. "Let's say I am going through a complex circle of relatives' state of affairs." "Ah," she stated, nodding knowingly. "Circle of relatives. On occasion they are those who hurt us the most, are not they?" Her phrases hit me like lightnings. That was exactly it. My own family became the only hurting me the maximum, and I have been so used to the pain that I had started to think it was every day. After coffee, I walked through the small city until I found what I used to be seeking out. Stone, legal professional at regulation. The signal turned into easy, however professional. I took a deep breath and entered. "Desirable morning," said a person approximately 50 years vintage with a kind face. "How can I assist you?" "I want criminal advice on family conditions," I advised him, feeling a little ridiculous but determined to continue. Invited me to take a seat down and presented me water. For the next hour, I advised him the entirety from name to the invasion of my house, from the fees they have been forcing me to incur to the entire lack of admire for my property and my money. The person listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes. "Mrs." he ultimately said, what you're describing to me is an emotional abuse. The fact that they are circle of relatives does now not provide them the proper to apply your property without permission or to force you to spend your money on them. But they are my family, I murmured, repeating the excuse I had used for years. Proper family respects it doesn't exploit, he replied. Have you ever notion about placing legal boundaries? Felony limitations. The idea seemed as bizarre as it became freeing. What sort of limitations? I asked. Properly, as an instance, your home is your non-public belongings. You've got absolutely the proper to decide who can be there and under what situations. If someone refuses to depart whilst you ask them to, they're technically trespassing. Trespassing my family. Also, persevered, if so many people are the usage of your house as a place of lodging. Legally, you could price them for the services you're providing, food, accommodations, basic utilities. In any inn, they might pay hundreds of dollars for what you're giving them for free. Should I simply price them? I requested, feeling a mix of hope and terror. Of course it is your property. They may be your assets. If they decided to come back uninvited and without contributing, you have every right to set up business terms for his or her stay. I left with a folder full of documents and a brand new perspective on my scenario. I had drafted a proper letter business accommodations terms for my assets with charges per room, in keeping with meal, and in step with provider. I additionally had facts approximately my rights as a owner of a house and the legal steps I could take if someone refused to respect my selections. My next forestall became the bank. I desired to recognize exactly how tons cash I had left and how much I had spent in the 2 days. The numbers have been alarming. In less than 48 hours, I had spent $520 of my meager savings. At that fee, I might be completely bankrupt in per week. The bank's supervisor, a young man named Richard, reviewed my account with a concerned expression. Mrs. Those prices are very excessive to your common. Is the whole thing okay? He requested me. I briefly defined the state of affairs and he nodded. With understanding. Look, it's none of my commercial enterprise, however I have seen comparable instances. Aged people who allow themselves to be financially exploited by spouse and children. Have you ever considered placing limits to your spending? I am beginning to keep in mind it, I replied. In case you want help controlling your charges or placing a budget that protects you from accidental overspending, we allow you to. We also can your account to require unique authorization for charges over a positive amount. It turned into another device I failed to realize existed. Another manner to guard myself from my personal erroneous generosity. Finally, I went to the grocery store, however this time I simplest offered the fundamentals. Rice, beans, pasta, tomato sauce, a few reasonably priced veggies, no luxuries, no meat for barbecues, no beers or cigarettes. I spent exactly $50. After I returned domestic 3 hours later, I was greeted by using a refrain of complaints. Mother, you took all the time, shouted. The children are starving and so are we. In which is the meat for the barbecue? Requested. And the beer, David delivered. The cigarettes, Robert insisted. I checked out them all standing in my reciting room in my house, looking forward to me to clear up all their problems with my money. And for the first time in years, I failed to sense guilt. I felt readability. I introduced fundamental meals, I informed them lightly. Rice, beans, pasta. So nobody starves. But what about everything we requested for? Insisted. I did not buy it, I responded sincerely. The silence that observed was deafening. 20 humans checked out me as though I had lost my mind. What do you mean you did not purchase it? Noah requested incredulously. I do not have money to buy meat for 30 people or beer or cigarettes or all the different belongings you requested for. I best have money for primary food. But mother intervened with that condescending voice I hated a lot. Will you have money saved? Do not be stingy. I took out the papers I had obtained from the bank and showed them. Those are my bank statements. In 2 days, I have spent $520 of my savings. I have less than $300 left till next month. There is no saved money, no mystery reserves. This is all I have. The papers exceeded from hand to hand like evidence in a tribulation. The faces of disbelief slowly transformed into faces of annoyance. Nicely, then we will need to discover options, David said ultimately. We will all contribute to the expenses. Concept, I spoke back, pulling the alternative folder from my bag. In fact, I went to see an attorney this morning and organized a that establishes business fees for lodging on my assets. The silence returned, but this time it became exceptional. It became the silence of individuals who had simply found out that their victim was no longer a sufferer. It's $100 according to room in step with night time, $50 according to man or woman in line with day for food, and $20 in keeping with day for simple offerings like water, energy, and laundry. I persevered analyzing the document. So far in 2 days, the total might be $2,800. I may want to have heard a pin drop. You are charging us to live in your own home? I asked in a shrill voice. No, I spoke back with as a whole lot calm as I ought to. I'm supplying you the option of buying the offerings you're receiving or accommodations elsewhere. For the first time in years, I was in control of the explosion that observed turned into epic. 20 humans at the equal time, shouting, protesting, seeking to make me feel guilty with all of the manipulation procedures that they had perfected over time. However, something had in me. It was as if I had built an invisible wall that did not permit their hurtful words bypass via. This is ridiculous, David shouted. We're circle of relatives. You cannot fee us to stay in your property. Considering the fact that while are you so grasping, Mom? Brought with crocodile tears in her eyes. Dad could be rolling in his grave if he knew you had been charging his circle of relatives. Mentioning my past due husband turned into the straw, however now not inside the way she predicted. As opposed to breaking me, it gave me electricity. Your father, I told her in it. Voice labored his entire existence so I might have protection. He might by no means have allowed his own family to deal with me like a housekeeper in my very own domestic. We are not treating you like an worker, protested. We're providing you with the possibility to spend time together with your circle of relatives. Spend time, I repeated with a sour laugh. Because you arrived, you have made me wash your child's garments, boil water for his bottles, and demanded that I purchase diapers and formula with my cash. Is that spending time? But we are own family, she insisted. That is what own family does proper. I answered with a readability that surprised even myself. What own family does is admire each different, make a contribution equally, and now not abuse each other's generosity. What you're doing is exploitation. Noah approached with a menacing look. Mary, I think you're going loopy. Maybe you need clinical assist. This is not you. You are proper, I responded unfazed. This wasn't me before. The antique Mary allow herself be walked all over, spent her financial on people who dealt with her badly. And burdened getting used with being loved. However, that Mary no longer exists. Mother, that is embarrassing, shouted. What will people think after you charged your own family for lodging? The identical people who would suppose badly of you for showing up uninvited at a 69-year vintage woman's residence and waiting for her to guide you totally free for 2 weeks, I replied. Attempted a one of a method. Mary allows be reasonable. We apprehend you've got expenses, but those prices are exaggerated. We can give you something symbolic. $50 for the whole stay. $50. I repeated slowly. For 20 people for 2 weeks, that's less than 18 cents in keeping with character consistent with day. Do you know the way much you paid for fuel to get right here? Probably greater than $50 in line with automobile. However, that's different, Robert protested. One of a kind. Why? Due to the fact your cash is well worth extra than mine. Because your costs are essential, however mine are not. The living room packed and long faces. I could see them looking at each different, looking to determine what strategy to apply. Now it turned into then that. My salvation appeared within the form of a woman about 60 years old with a basket of vegetables in her palms. It changed into my neighbor, who had come to welcome me to the neighborhood. Correct morning, she said from the open door. I stay next door. I came to satisfy my new neighbor and oh, excuse me. I see you have got visitors. Are available, please, I said, grateful for the interruption. They're relatives who came to go too. Entered and straight away sensed the tension within the environment. She changed into one of those older women who visible so much of existence that they could examine a scenario in seconds. What a large own family, she commented with a smile, however her clever eyes were already analyzing the scene. It'd have to be pricey to preserve so many humans. I hope they are contributing to the prices. The awkward silence that observed became eloquent. They may be no longer contributing. Requested with actual wonder. Oh, what a shame. In my day, when you visited someone, you continually introduced something or helped with. The prices, in particular if there had been such a lot of humans. However, our own family murmured. Ah, all the greater reason, responded energetically. Circle of relatives is the only who must cope with their very own the maximum. You already know what. My daughter lives within the city and every time she comes together with her, she always brings the complete groceries. She says it's no longer fair for me to spend my pension feeding her entire circle of relatives. I ought to see how words have been having an impact. It became one component. For me to tell them they were abusing me, however it changed into quite some other for a stranger to wireless it. And in which are you all from? Persisted asking with harmless curiosity. From the town, David responded curtly. Oh, the trip must have been steeply priced. Gas, food on the manor, after which arriving and everything paid for. How lucky. Even though I think you all organized yourselves to help Mary with the prices for such a lot of humans. Each phrase from was like a needle pricking. My own family's moral sense, or at the least pricking their pleasure at being exposed to a stranger. I stated, could you want to have some espresso? I would love to get to understand you higher. Of course, but don't worry about waiting on me. I see you already have your fingers full with such a lot of humans. As I prepared espresso for in the kitchen, she observed me. Honey, she whispered. I do not know if it is my vicinity to say this, however the ones human beings do not seem like they are right here out of affection. They appear to be they are here for comfort. Her words had been like a bomb. A person else noticed what I had been seeing, but have been denying for years. Is it that obvious? I asked. Darling, I have been in this world for 60 years. I have visible the whole lot. Those humans arrived expecting to be treated like kings, and also you appear like a person who hasn't slept well and is spending cash she would not have. I broke down a touch. However, they may be my own family. True family would not abuse my pricey. Authentic circle of relatives takes care of their elders. They do not make the most them. Positioned a comforting hand on my shoulder. Need me to inform you something? My sister had the same problem along with her children. They lived off her, treated her like an worker, spent her pension. Do what she did. What? I asked with a bit of luck. She set barriers. She told them, you go to me once I invite you for the time I decide, and also you contribute to the fees. If you don't end. Ed. First there has been drama, shouting, emotional blackmail, but then they found out she became critical and it labored. Of course, now they go to her occasionally, always convey something, usually assist, and treat her with respect due to the fact they learned that a mother's affection isn't always unfastened after they confuse it with exploitation. Whilst we again to the reciting room with the coffee, the family had been murmuring among themselves. I should see that they had reached some form of consensus. David cleared his throat. Mary, we have been talking and we assume maybe we could make contributions something to the prices. Not the exaggerated quantities you advocate, however something reasonable. How a whole lot do you remember affordable? I requested. $200 for the whole stay for all people said. Nearly choked on her coffee. $200 for 20 humans for 2 weeks. Youngsters, the cheapest hotel on the town, fees $60 in line with night according to room. The maths become relentless and they knew it. But I had already made my decision. $200 I repeated slowly, as though considering the offer. I noticed all of them with anticipation of their faces, thinking they had discovered a manner to get their way all over again. For 20 human beings for 14 days with 3 food and afternoon, accommodations, water, energy, fuel, laundry, and cleaning. Exactly, said with a positive smile. See, we're reasonable. We want to make a contribution. Looked at me with that expression only sensible girls have when something appropriate is set to happen. She had perfectly understood what became happening. Okay, I sooner or later instructed them, I receive your thought. All and sundry sighed with comfort. They notioned they'd won, however I endured, and that I watched as their faces hardened with one condition. Given that this is now an industrial transaction, I need you to signal a accommodations settlement. A settlement? Noah asked suspiciously. Of direction, if you're going to pay for offerings, we need to really set up what the one's offerings encompass and what they don't. It is to shield each person. I took out the papers had prepared and placed them on the coffee desk. This contract that for $200 you are entitled to sleep on the reciting room ground, 1 simple meal a day, rice and beans, get entry to the toilet at some stage in precise hours, and nothing else. 1 meal a day, shouted. However, we predicted 3 meals. Of path you may have 3 meals a day, I answered sweetly. But it truly is in the premium package deal, which charges the $2,800 I originally noted. That is absurd. David exploded. You're crazy in case you assume we are going to signal that. You don't have to sign it. I instructed them with ideal calm. You may find lodging someplace else. In truth, I assume that would be pleasant for everybody. Mother shouted. You cannot kick us out. We're your own family. I am not kicking you out, I replied. I am supplying you with options. You may pay the economic fees for the offerings you need. You may pay for the simple offerings you can manage to pay for. Or you can alternatives that higher your price range. Slowly applauded. Bravo. It really is precisely what my sister needed to do. Clear options, truthful terms, no emotional blackmail. You live out of this, shouted at. This is a circle of relatives depend. You are right. Spoke back standing up. It's Miles, a circle of relatives remember, and a very family doesn't treat its elders like that. She headed for the door, but earlier than leaving she turned to me. Mary, in case you want something, anything at all, you recognize wherein I stay. And if those people purpose you problems, don't hesitate to name me. Right here on the town, friends look out for every other. After left the dwelling room fell silent. I may want to see the wheels turning of their heads, trying to a new method. Try the guilt technique. Mary, your husband and I had been very close. He considered me like a brother. Do you think he would like to look you treating his in-laws like this? My husband, I replied, taught me to praise myself. He taught me that real love is proven through actions, no longer words. And he taught me that permitting others to abuse you isn't love. It's cowardice. Robert attempted intimidation. Mary, I do not assume you comprehend the state of affairs you're getting yourself into. There are many of us, and you are on my own. It's not clever to make enemies of the circle of relatives. His phrases would have me before, however now they most effective confirmed what I already knew. These humans didn't love me. They wished me. And when they couldn't use my love, they resorted to worry. Are you threatening me in my personal home? I requested with a calm that amazed me. It's not a hazard, he spoke back speedy. I am just being sensible. The fact, I said, is that you came to my residence uninvited, anticipating free offerings you cannot manage to pay for. The truth is that once I requested you to make contributions equally, you refused. And the truth is that now that I provide you truthful options, you into threats and intimidation. Started to cry. It become a dramatic cry designed to govern. I can't agree with how merciless you've turned out to be, Mary. My baby desires balance, and you are throwing us out into the street. Your infant, I replied, wishes dad and mom who can manage to pay for his simple wishes without relying on exploiting an elderly lady. If you cannot have the funds for a holiday, perhaps you shouldn't take one. The children who had been gambling in the garden ran in. Grandma, why is everybody shouting? The youngest asked. My coronary heart broke a touch. The youngsters had been innocent in all this, but their parents were the usage of them as emotional shields. The adults are having a serious conversation, I answered gently. Why do not you go play outdoor for a bit longer? However, we are hungry, one of the twins said. Is the meals prepared? I checked out all the adults inside the living room. None moved to take care of their very own hungry kids. They anticipated me to do it as continually. Parents, I said, your youngsters are hungry. In the kitchen, there's rice and beans that you can prepare for them. You are no longer going to cook. Noah requested incredulously. I cooked the day past and the day before. Today you may cook, I spoke back. However, we don't know the way to cook, protested. Then perhaps it's time to learn, I responded. Or you could take the kids to eat on the town. There are numerous eating places. David stood up abruptly. This is the straw. Percent our things. We are leaving right now. In which? Asked in a panic. We do not have reservations anywhere. We're going to something. Something is better than being here with this model of your mom. I stayed seated, looking them run to and fro, unexpectedly packing their things. Part of me felt unhappy looking the chaos. However, a bigger element felt relieved. Mom stated to me when they had the whole thing packed, this is not you. I don't know what's came about to you, however I am helping you replicate on what you've got nowadays. You have destroyed your family for cash. No, I replied, standing up to appearance her without delay in the eyes. I have observed my dignity and learned the distinction between family who loves me and those who use me. You will remorse this, she shouted as she left. While you're alone and sick, do not come asking us for assist. I opt to be alone with dignity, then followed without recognize, I spoke back. One by one they were given into their motors. This time there were no tears from the children, because that they had understood that this visit turned into. This time there had been no shouts or dramatic protests, simplest the resignation of folks who had misplaced their preferred victim. I watched them force away for the second one and remaining time, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Entire peace. That night time came to dinner. She had made bird stew and I had prepared rice with pigeon peas. We ate on my porch, looking the sun down over approximately our lawn plans. Do you feel accurate about your selection? She requested me. I experience loose, I responded for the primary time in years. I feel unfastened. 6 months later, my residence had clearly emerged as my domestic. My lawn flourished. I had a small network of pals in town, and I had commenced taking painting training at the community center. My days had been filled with sports I selected to do, no longer ones I used to be forced to do. Called me once in a while each time she needed something. Money borrowed, babysitting a problem. I listened patiently, after which informed her, I am sorry, my love, but I cannot assist you with that. At the start, she would get angry. Then she would beg, then she might threaten. Now she simply hangs up. I have discovered that loving a person would not suggest letting them hurt you. I have learned that being doesn't suggest exhausting yourself for others. I've learned that true own family takes care of you as a good deal as you cope with them. And I've discovered something even greater, vital. It's never too late to reclaim your lifestyles, your dignity, and your right to be. This morning, I woke up to the sound of birds making a song, brewed my espresso in my clean and tidy kitchen, and went out to water my flora, which can be developing beautiful and robust, much like me. If you loved my story, you may assist me by sending a high-quality thanks so I can write greater memories like this. Thank you plenty in advance. What approximately you? What might you do on this individual's footwear? I would clearly like to pay attention your mind, so drop them within the remarks. I'm continually curious to understand what you believe you studied. Oh, and permit me understand in which you've heard this tale. In case you need to listen greater existence tales like this, just like the video and join my channel. There are many extra looking forward to you. Huge hugs and notice you